Morning, Pastor Jules.
Morning, Pastor Tanner. Looks like I'm kind of dark here. Maybe this will be better. Oh, hi. You can look at my grill instead of the beautiful greenery.
There you go.
And enter in person mowing lawn right down the street. So I might have to move.
Oh, it's not that loud.
Carson, you gonna say good morning to everybody? How about you, Crash?
Give me half a second.
What's that? Okay. I am gonna move inside because this is right next door and it's going to be extremely noisy. And it seems like the only time they ever mow the lawn is when I'm outside. So I'll be right back, people of God.
Say hi. Can you say hi? Oh, thank you. Yeah, thank you. Hi. Piper is very excited to be at the church today because Haley's here and she missed Haley desperately. And also Dennis and Ev are here and they're working on finalizing that trenching, and so she's just been standing by the front door staring at them endlessly, watching them. Plus the guys who take care of our lawn and gardens have been here today, and they have been pulling weeds right outside the window, and so she's been like perching right here staring at everybody. It's been very exciting. She's thrilled out of her mind by all the work that is happening here. Finally, things to see and people to interact with. It's not just laying here on a rug waiting for me to take her outside on occasion.
It's all good.
It's all good. All right.
Oh, hi.
Hi. Should we get started?
What do you want to look at first today, Pastor Tanner?
Let's look at Isaiah first today. Do you want to read that for us? You have it handy?
I think I might. Hang on. Yes.
Isaiah 55.
Isaiah 55, just verses 1 through 5.
Just verses 1 through 5.
And the preface from Sundays and Seasons reads, God invites Israel to a great feast at which both food and drink are free. God also promises to make an everlasting covenant with all peoples, with promises that previously had been limited to Israel. As David was a witness to the nations, sorry, I was getting feedback on my other device. As David was witness to the nations, these nations shall now acknowledge the ways in which God has glorified Israel.
Excellent.
Ho! That's so much like yo, but it's not. But I like the greeting.
The Hebrew word is hoy.
Hoy!
H like H-O-Y. I mean, whatever the Hebrew equivalent of that is, but H-O-Y.
I like it. Ho, everyone who thirsts, come to the waters, and you that have no money, come buy and eat. Come buy wine and milk without money and without price. Why do you spend your money for that which is not bread, and your labor for that which does not satisfy? Listen carefully to me. and eat what is good, and delight yourselves in rich food. Incline your ear and come to me. Listen so that you may live. I will make with you an everlasting covenant, my steadfast, sure love for David. See, I made him a witness to the peoples, a leader and commander for the peoples. See, you shall call nations that you do not know, and nations that do not know you shall run to you because of the Lord your God, the Holy One of Israel, for he has glorified you. The word of God for the people of God.
Thanks be to God.
Woohoo!
What do you think? There's a lot of good stuff there. There's a whole lot of imperatives.
I was thinking about camp songs, actually, as I read it through.
Yeah.
Come to the waters. Come to the waters, stand by my side. I know you are thirsty. There's nothing to hide. Dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun. You know, that's pulling way back from the archives. Way.
Way back.
So
They must
I'm
have lost
checking.
the manuscripts to that before I came along as a camper.
I'm thinking it had to have
The
been.
wind had worn away the stone that was etched on.
I'm pretty sure that was like back in 1978.
1978. No, well, that's all right.
Yeah, were you even born until the 2000s?
No, I was born before that. Thank you very much.
Anyway, I like the extravaganceness of this text. I guess that's
yeah.
And it reminds me of that little theme we've been talking about with mercy, 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 like the God seeding everything and the abundance of God's goodness and grace, and even coming to the shepherds last week.
Yeah. I like the imagery of God's abundance like spilling over any boundary that is set. That I mean, historically, this was kind of a group of people who literally didn't have money. It was a barter system, but who in exile were being forced to try to figure out how to live with like literal silver. Like that was new, trying to figure out how to do some of these things. And God's love can't be commodified, right? There's like, you can't put a price, you can't buy it, you can't sell it. It just is. And you don't need money because there's no price. I think that's lovely.
I like it.
God's economy is one of abundance and not scarcity.
Amen, brother.
That's going to come up again.
Also, I like incline your ear. Come to me, listen, so that you may live. I like that imagery of inclining one's ear towards the good news.
Finding new life in different places.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Great.
I think it would have sounded really interesting because like Isaiah is also writing to a people in exile again, right? So you've got these folks who are trapped in exile, and they're away from everything that they know, away from culture and faith and people and home and land. The promised land, away from the promised land that God had given them, that they had strayed from. That's when God speaks this promise of radical abundance that would have had to hit their ears, just kind of like, huh? Where is this going to come from? How is that going to work?
I like it.
Me too. And with all people, right? Like that's the new thing here, which I think is very cool. We're expanding the promise. The promise is going out, not just the people of David, but to all people, which is a switch. This is a big changeover in the message. This is why so many of the reformers looked at Isaiah and thought that it was a fifth gospel, because it proclaims the good news to all people in this really beautiful and radical sort of way.
I don't think I've ever heard that before.
What?
Like a fifth gospel.
Oh, there's a, I think it's the Wycliffe Bible.
Ooh,
Are you familiar with the Wycliffe Bible?
I actually am.
Oh, excellent. Yeah. One of my professors always threw random quotes out of it. It's from the 14th century, so a little bit before the big reformer movement. But the intro to Isaiah speaks of Isaiah not only as a prophet but more a gospeler. And it's old English language, which I'm going to copy right now and stick into the comments because it's delightful, uh, and I think that it's very funny. Um, but a gospeler being this idea of um, like one who actually proclaims the gospel, a gospeler sort of thing. Um,
You're a gospeler.
you're a gospeler, and
People
you
who
have
are
to look at
participating in Bible study are gospelers.
this is a gospeler. Do you have the Facebook thing up?
Yeah.
Because you have to look at the spellings because it's solid 14th century spellings of words.
Oh my gosh, that's great.
It's very phonetic. It's delightful.
Gospelere.
Gospeler.
Yes.
I also really appreciate how he spells only.
Only,
I mean, it is. This
it
is the
looks
problem with
normal.
English language.
It looks kind of normal to me. I mean, I wouldn't have a hard time reading that manuscript at all. Because my letters get all jumbled up all the time.
It's perfect. It's exactly how I mean, like if I had this Bible at my fingertips when I was doing all the spelling tests that I took as a kid, I could have just pulled it out and been like, no, Wycliffe spells it exactly like this. Let's go, Mrs. Hammer. Like, no, I am correct.
I'm having a little PTSD here because spelling was the worst thing ever throughout elementary school.
Yeah.
Could not spell, could not hear the word, could not see the word. It was just frustrating.
Yeah.
But I think I'd enjoy this book.
This is perfect.
Hey, did you get it? I sang the psalm this week.
You did sing the psalm this week, 145.
145. And the first take of it, by the way, I took it down in the valley. And I sang, the Lord is gracious and full of compassion, slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love. Lord, you are good to all, and your compassion is over all your works. And then, whoom, Carson ran into me. And then she proceeded to knock over the camera.
Sure. Pretty standard.
As one does when the valley is completely empty and there's so many other places to run. But what was funny about that is that it wasn't crashed.
Not the clumsy now, is he?
Exactly. The Lord is gracious and full of compassion, slow to anger, and abounding in steadfast love, which is our Lenten verse that we sing.
Absolutely.
As the gospel acclamation.
Yes, it is.
It doesn't say it exactly here, but it kind of combines it. Return to the Lord your God, for God is gracious and merciful, slow to anger, and abounding in steadfast love and abounding in steadfast love. Gosh, I love that. That's good news right there too, isn't it?
It's good news. There's a lot of good news in our readings this week, which is always nice. Always nice when there's a lot of good news floating around. Happy. I like to go back a little bit into verse 2 that idea of why do you labor for that which does not satisfy? This a friend of mine spoke last week about finding joy in what you do, and that has really stuck with me. And so I thought that that was just one of those moments where Isaiah kind of pops that, and I feel like there are a lot of people that don't get a lot of joy out of what they do day to day, and that, I don't know, it's always kind of boggled my mind a little bit. Like, I don't know, find joy. It's good. Piper finds a lot of joy in eating treats that people have left at the church for her. She's very happy about that.
Yes. I think some people are stuck, right? I mean, we have an economic structure which is not awesome for all people,
To say the least. Yeah.
to say the least. So that stuckness is one piece of it. But if you really, really hate what you're doing, then you got to try something else, you know? I find so much joy in everything that we get to do as pastors. I mean, I really feel like I am so fortunate to be able to read and study and connect and preach and teach and, you know, Zoom and visit people virtually. And I mean, this is a very, very weird time. I don't know that I was filled with a whole lot of joy around Easter when we couldn't get together. And then as it dragged on and dragged on, and then I looked at the calendar and thought, what? How is it that it's going to be like August?
Tomorrow.
Right?
Tomorrow is, or tomorrow, the next day?
The next
Saturday.
day.
Saturday is August.
Like this COVID time is so bizarre. I think it's hard to find, as my friend Bonnie Wilcox says, don't let COVID steal you of your joy.
Yeah.
And I can see that, you know, there's a few times throughout this period where I didn't feel a whole lot of joy, but I think this is a great reminder.
Find a little where you can, right?
Right? In the moments, not in the big picture. I mean, we're still moving towards a tipping point here. I just don't know when it's going to tip.
Good stuff, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Anything else for Isaiah?
No, but I didn't mean to jump ahead by the psalm. I thought we
No, you're good. That's all I really wanted to touch on with the psalm. I wanted to kind of weave those two together. So.
Oh, good.
They kind of pop us into Matthew anyway. So.
Excellent.
Matthew chapter 14, verses 13 through 21. And by the way, hi everybody. Thank you for greeting one another. But if you have any comments or questions, make sure you toss them into the comment section there, and we'll hit them as we go. All right. The intro from Sundays and Seasons today gives us a solid placement, a reminder of where this story fits within the greater gospel, because it's kind of an odd point in time in Jesus's life and ministry. So chapter 13 features Jesus doing a lot of teaching, and then chapter 14 kind of moves us into Jesus's ministry of healing. But it begins with Jesus in his hometown being rejected. And then it continues with him finding out from John the Baptist's disciples that John the Baptist has been murdered by beheading by Herod and Herodias and their daughter. And that's where it begins. So this is just after John's disciples have come to let Jesus know that John is dead. And John is both Jesus' cousin and very good friend and ministry partner, etc., etc., etc. So this is not great news at the beginning. So the intro is, after John the Baptist is murdered, Jesus desires a time of solitude. Still, his compassion for others will not allow him to dismiss those who need him, and he is moved to perform one of his greatest miracles. So this is Matthew 14, 13 through 21. Now, when Jesus had heard about the beheading of John the Baptist, He withdrew from there in a boat to a deserted place by himself. But when the crowds heard it, they followed him on foot from the towns. And when he came ashore, he saw a great crowd, and he had compassion for them, and cured their sick. And when it was evening, the disciples came to him and said, "This is a deserted place, and the hour is now late. Send the crowds away, so that they may go into the villages and buy food for themselves." Jesus said to them, "They need not go away. You give them something to eat." They replied, "We have nothing here but 5 loaves and 2 fish." And he said, "Bring them here to me." Then he ordered the crowds to sit down on the grass. Taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, he looked up to heaven and blessed and broke the loaves and gave them to the disciples, and the disciples gave them to the crowds. And all ate and were filled, and they took up what was left over of the broken pieces, 12 baskets full. And those who ate were about 5,000 men, besides women and children. This is the word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
God. I always get I don't know if I have to laugh or sigh heavily at the last line, the besides women and children bit. Like, just, I mean, at least they're mentioned. That's new. But anyway,
There's a book called that, Not Counting Women and Children,
not counting women and children.
by Megan McKenna, maybe? Not sure. It's out on our
Don't
bookshelf.
exist though. All right, so the feeding of the 5,000, the fishes and loaves.
Yes.
Did you know that fish is both singular and plural, but fishes is appropriate when you're talking about multiple species of fish?
I did not know that.
I learned that this week. So if you have 2 halibut, you have 2 fish. But if you have a halibut and a salmon, you have 2 fishes. There you go.
And you're using this just for the halibut?
Just for the halibut. Just for the halibut. There you go. That, by the way, is the basis of my entire sermon this week. Not
just for the halibut?
Yeah, just for the halibut. That's what it is. Because I want to get fired.
You can't get fired. You have to be voted out by a 2/3 majority, and that's not going to happen.
Well, see, there you go.
Hey, I did a little bit of research on this. Jennifer T. Kaalund. Kalund? Not sure how you pronounce it. Is that you or me binging?
That's you.
No, I told it to stop, but it keeps coming. All right, there we go. I was afraid if I hit like Command Q that you would just go away, which could have happened.
You know, that's fine. All right, what do you got?
I have, well, before I have a plug. I have a plug, and my plug is this. Sue Monk Kidd wrote a book called The Book of Longing. The Book of Longing. And I am putting a plug out into the universe that y'all read this book, because it is a historically accurate, as much as one can be, book about antiquity through the lens of the wife of Jesus. Now, don't get hysterical. I'm not being heretical. But what she does in this book is she helps us look through a different set of lenses, and that is what was life like first person woman during the time of Jesus.
Okay.
And it's absolutely brilliant. In fact, one of our council members sent me a note last week, just raving over how well it was written, how powerful it was. I know that some of you who are friends with me on Goodreads probably saw or read my review on that. It's a beautiful book. And if you haven't read Sue Monk Kidd, her book, all of her books, they kind of remind me of writers like Amy Tan and Barbara Kingsolver. Just the the depth of which she evokes the senses is absolutely beautiful. And historically, like looking at all of the political stuff in the background and how it was really about an uprising against the authorities and how do we do that. And the interesting part for me was that it didn't follow the biblical narrative, but like all of the stories were in there. Like so many of the stories from the gospel lessons were in there. And it makes it's just extremely compelling to read, and it was incredibly thoughtful. And the way that she painted Jesus primarily was he was so out of the norm, primarily because he was outrageously compassionate to all people. Like he did not differentiate between man, woman, tax collector, fisher person, any of it. And one of the illustrations that of their first encounter was he was playing some sort of a game with yarn with one of his sisters, and men just didn't do that in the marketplace.
Yeah.
So it was seriously, the Book of Longing, Sumont Kid. Read it. It's a great way to reclaim a better understanding of how compassionate Jesus was. And that's Jesus cures the sick people in the crowd because he cared for them. Apparently, Jesus' healing had taken a great deal of time because his disciples come to him and suggest that he send the crowds away. Well, part of that was there was no McDonald's.
They're in the middle of nowhere.
Chipotle, there's no food. How do you navigate that?
Well, and I read somewhere somebody posed the question, like, why wouldn't these people have thought about that? Like, surely somebody should have brought some snacks with them, sort of thing. But I think that nobody thought it was going to take so long. You know?
Well, he went on and on. He was healing everybody. He like wanted to hang out with everybody and heal them and restore them to community, to relationship, to the whole thing. And I often have thought about like my grandmother's purse when I've read this story. Because if you look through the 14,000 pockets and zippered areas within that satchel that was the weight of a bowling ball,
yeah,
you would probably find enough saltines to last you throughout the end of the week.
For a pretty goodly amount of time there. Yeah.
So a commentator that I read years ago when this text came through said maybe the real miracle is that everybody shared everything that they had.
Yeah, and I've read that too, but I see joy in that and like that experience, but I also feel like I don't know, this is a miracle. Like the
Right.
multiplication of the bread and the fish is the miracle, and people sharing alike is good. But I like to. There's got to be a reason that all four gospel writers picked this up, you know, and it's the only thing that all four gospel writers picked up because like it had to have been like this, whoa, sort of moment in the lives of these people to go from 5 loaves and 2 fish to everybody eating. I mean, a lot of people eating, and then to have leftovers as well is incredible. It's so cool. It's abundance out of scarcity.
Sorry, 5,000, not counting women and children.
Yeah, plus women and children.
How many children did most family units have back then?
Well, I don't know.
I don't know either.
A couple. If they brought them. I mean, we're also children. Like.
That's right. We talked about that.
Yeah. You know.
Hey, did you notice how he did that?
How he did what?
not just the blessing, but so he gets done healing all these people. The disciples are like, yep, we need to send these guys away. And Jesus does the absolute opposite. He orders them to sit down.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is a command that's kind of interesting to me, because he commands us to go therefore and make disciples of all nations, and also take and eat. Like, this is a command. And here's another command that we don't really notice as a command, but he's like, sit down. Did Piper just sit down?
No, she's wandering aimlessly.
He orders them to sit down.
And did you notice who actually fed the crowds?
No, who did?
Not Jesus, the disciples. Right? He orders the disciples, he looks at the disciples and he says, you feed them. And they're like, this is all we have. And he blesses it and breaks it. But then they take it and they distribute the bread. And then they go out and they pick up the baskets full at the end. Right? This is this beautiful commentary on discipleship. Right? Jesus does all this healing and ministry and care work, and then he looks at his disciples and he says, you're up. Go and do this. And yeah, sure, it's Jesus' miracle, but the disciples are invited into that and asked to be a part of that, right? Like, it is an invitation to action and involvement here, to not just sit back and wait for Jesus to do something, but to get out there and do it. Know that you're equipped to do these things.
Which is still true today. Because everyone that has joined us on this Bible study, everyone that's a part of any church, wherever you are, or even not, don't have to specifically belong to a church. It's about showing up, doing good, being kind, being present, being in each moment,
yeah,
caring for neighbor, having compassion for neighbor, mercy, justice.
All the good things.
All good things.
Yeah.
So, other notes that I highlighted, if I may.
Sure.
This particular commentary, again, this is from Working Preacher by Jennifer Kalin. She sort of takes on Jesus is empathizing with those who are hungry, right? And then she flips it over to perhaps there's much to be gleaned from this ancient example to address two major issues in our society today: healthcare and hunger.
Yeah, absolutely.
Healthcare and hunger. And today we can advocate for a system that is more akin to the kingdom of heaven and less like the ancient Roman imperial system that God's kingdom opposed. Hunger is related to illnesses and developmental disabilities. Yes. So,
and hunger remain such issues still today.
Huge. Yep.
Yep. There they are.
So that's about all I wanted to lift up from her commentary. I just thought it was the compassion piece, and then paying attention to how it is that we can intersect with those who are hungry.
Yeah. They go hand in hand. That call to serve, that call to be involved, that call to action.
Right on. So, what are you preaching on this week, Pastor Tanner?
I think that I'm gonna kind of continue my comments from the newsletter and talk about abundance in the midst of uncertainty.
I like it.
So that's the thought. So,
do we have time for a couple of announcements? And have we concluded this portion of Matthew, or did you want to go someplace else?
No, we have included this portion of Matthew. Yep. That's good. I wanted to chat with folks about drive-through communion.
Yep.
Do you have other announcements?
Well, as a preface to that, we have some bonus videos that are going to be rolling out to you the first 3 Wednesdays, possibly one additional one at the end of the month on a Wednesday. We haven't figured out we're going to continue on with something inside of the Book of Concord or just sort of fill something else out with that. But the Book of Concord, do you still have a copy right there, or is it at
No,
home?
mine's at home.
Yeah. The Book of Concord is a very big book.
This is a big book.
And many of the people who have participated in Bible studies here at All Saints Lutheran Church have read said book, but maybe not for many years. So our Vicar John, who is in the Luther Seminary D-Min X program, which is an accelerated where we would do 4 years for Pastor Tanner and I to complete a Master Divinity degree. Vicar John is doing it in 2. So it's like super accelerated. Part of his assignment was to understand, memorize, and tell us about the 28 articles in the Augsburg Confession, also represented in many textbooks as the CA, not the AC. Anyway, he passed with flying colors, and we had colorful commentary throughout, and it's not only somewhat entertaining, it's very, very informative about the Lutheran confessions. And so on your screen, coming up in August, the first Wednesday in August, there will be a taped Zoom that you can watch on articles 1 through 10, and then the following weeks, 11 through 20, and then 21 through 28. And then at night, you can join us through drive-through communion.
Yeah, we're gonna be doing some drive-through communion here. So this is how it's gonna work. From 6 to 8 o'clock on Wednesday evenings throughout August, you are invited to come for drive-through communion. What that means is you will be driving through the carport, new carport, and receiving communion in your vehicle. Do not get out of your vehicle. I just want to repeat that. Do not get out of your vehicle at any point in time in this process. That'd be great. We'll have folks come in on the entrance from Gary Boulevard and then exit out toward the Armory on that side. So if there's a line of cars in front of you, that's how it'll work. You can come at any point in time during that. We'll do each car individually as folks come through. You will be given communion, either wine or grape juice. Gluten-free bread will be available as well, et cetera, just like usual. We will hand that to you on a tray through your window. You will take that. We will sanitize the tray. Please wear masks. We will be wearing masks. Vicar John and Pastor Jules and I are going to kind of take turns being there with a couple of other folks to help facilitate it. So it's going to be good. We're looking forward to it. It's a brief but hopefully wonderfully meaningful connection that we can all make together throughout August. So if you have questions about that, you can throw a message up on Facebook or email us as well, and we would be happy to get back to you. But otherwise, 6 to 8 every Wednesday throughout August, you're invited to join us here at All Saints.
Yay. Yeah. We just, our main concern is to keep you safe.
Yes.
And so we always want you to join us for virtual worship, which will continue after we're able to get back together again. But that getting back together again is going to be probably longer than we imagined originally. So keep wearing your masks, wash your hands, don't touch your face. Don't get up on other people's grills. Allow a little bit of space.
Yeah.
And give yourself a little bit of grace along the way. I know this is hard. So one of the best things that I can tell you is that self-care is super important during this time. Show yourself some extravagant love as well as those around you. Yes.
Yes. take care of yourselves. Please. There'll be more information on all these things in your newsletter, which will probably be coming to your way today if you get it via email, or it'll be up on our website as well. Also, on our website and YouTube channel and Facebook page, if you missed Jazz in July, that is on there. And it was so much fun. You should listen to it repeatedly. It's great. Highly recommend.
Excellent.
Yeah. What else is going on? Anything else happening this week, next couple weeks?
Um,
I feel like that's kind of where we're at. There's some awesome VBS stuff happening right now, which I know many of you have signed up for with our partner camp at Luther Crest. So if you're doing that, let us know how it goes. Or if you have a grandchild that's doing it, or you're not sure if they're signed up, but you'd like them to be, like, check out the website. Let us know if you have any questions. We would love for you to be involved with that. It's going to be a lot of fun. The theme is bold transformational faith. So it's cool stuff. Absolutely.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
I don't see any questions on our Facebook page right now. So thanks all.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Bye.